James from Better Music Canberra, and this is Simon from Roland Sydney, and we're here to show you a bit of a hybrid setup we've got here. We've got a 15K brain, we've got some V-drums, and we've got some triggers and some acoustic drums. Let's have a little talk about this setup, Simon.
Yeah, well, this is actually a straightforward TD15K kit, exactly the same as you would buy in the store, straight out of the box. So it's got a crash, ride, 3 toms. My snare has been moved over to the left-hand side here. And in between, I've squeezed in my 22-inch bass drum, acoustic bass drum. And I've got on the left here, I've got my trigger bass drum. So it's a KD9 trigger pedal, the one that comes with the kit. And the idea with this is that you don't have to decide to be an acoustic or electronic drummer. You can combine them both. It's been done for a very long time. I've got a snare in the middle, which is my acoustic snare, and my acoustic bass drum, but I have triggers on them. So I've got our RT series triggers, RT10K for kick, RT10S for snare, and they allow me to then actually effectively mic up, in a way, my snare drum sound, but actually use it as a trigger source to trigger any sounds that I want inside the module. So that first example there, I was actually using, I've just called it vintage rock kit, but it's augmented with a snare sound that has reverb on it. So when I hit the snare, you can hear the tail of the reverb. My normal drum sound, just picked up via the microphones, because we've got a 57 on the snare and a standard bass drum microphone, is just this. I'll just play you now the basic dry drum kit sound without any triggers. Okay, so it's a good foundation kit sound that you would find when you just stick 2 mics on the drums. But as soon as I add into it this hybrid factor, the fact that I now have the sounds actually augmented with the module, it's a much different world. It's huge. It makes you play differently because you're playing to the sound. And some people say, oh, that's cheating. It's not cheating, it's reinforcing your drum sound. I still have to play, and I still have to put effort in to get something out of it, but I'm actually using it to reinforce my sound, just like a guitarist would use a pedal to reinforce their sound or change their amplifier to reinforce their live sound as well. So it's a really fun thing to do.
And that'd be really great to do live as well.
Absolutely. I mean, you can turn up to a gig with a very basic kit and plug it through the sound system. The sound engineer can still be happy because they're still miking drums, which can be nice for them. And for the drummer, you've got something that looks like an acoustic kit, but you're augmenting it with electronics. And here I have my acoustic toms, and the good thing about this is acoustic tom sounds, but I'm actually using triggers, samples. So these are actually just triggering sounds from the module. The cool thing about doing it this way is that they're much slimmer, so they're easier to fit into the kit, so I can configure the kit however I like. And also, I don't need mics on them. So I've got no feedback issues, I've got no problems with bass or guitar coming through these microphones on the toms because they're just triggered toms. On the side I have a snare. This could be anything I want. At the moment I've got it signed to a big snare drum with reverb, but I also have my main snare in the middle as well. And again, because it has a trigger, it's triggering the sounds from the module. When I change kits in here, I can dramatically change the sound of my kit. For example, this is my vintage rock kit, but if I go to the next one, which is a tight groove studio kit, I've got a much snappier, tighter sort of bass drum sound. So versus the dry version of it. Okay, again, so you can really hear the difference. And I've still got my toms as well, so it's a beautiful thing, you know, and this has been done for a long time. Like I remember seeing Midnight Oil in the early days, and he had his conventional acoustic bass drum, but he had the thing triggered, and he had toms, trigger toms as well, for getting a really bright, snappy sound on stage. Same with Paul Wheeler from Icehouse as well. He had a very conventional looking kit, but quite slim toms because they were trigger toms, and he had a bass drum trigger on his bass drum, so they could get that really constant, fat, snappy bass drum sound. Same with John Farris from INXS. You know, Neil Peart from Rush has done it for a long time as well. You know, Meshuggah, there's triggers on all that metal stuff as well. There's lots of bands who are using it, and it's not cheating, it's sound reinforcement for your drums on stage and in the studio. Yeah,
I can see it being heavily used in different genres like metal especially, and also hip hop, and really enhancing that kind of sound. Because especially with metal, to have that defined sound coming through is just crucial.
Absolutely. And the other thing which makes it really interesting to play is that, so here I've got a pretty conventional bass drum. It's an old Premier kick, 22-inch by 16. It has a very particular sound that you can't change much. It's really what it is. Whereas if I wanted to play metal with this kit, the dry sound is pretty lame for metal. Here's my bass drum. Okay, it's nice and sort of acoustic-y, but it's not very snappy. Whereas if I bring in something like this, I've created a kit here which I've called 4 on the Floor, and you could use this for dance music, or you could use it for a really super bass drum sound as well. But the sound itself is pretty snappy, heavy sound, and I have my conventional trigger bass drum on the left as well. So using the two together, because I can tune them differently, because each one is triggering a different sound from the module, I can actually play which is a pretty cool thing, because usually drummers these days are used to double pedals, but you've got the same bass drum sound every time. It's playing the same sound. Whereas this lets me tune them separately, so you can do some much more interesting patterns that sound very different, like this. So it's going back to almost the old school of drumming, where you would have two separate bass drums tuned differently to give you a double bass drum sound.
Thanks, Simon, for that great demo,
problems,
man.
James.
I'm James from Better Music. This has been Simon from Roland. Come into Better Music, check out our online store and talk to one of our friendly staff, and you'll be able to check out some of the great Roland gear that we've just demonstrated today. Hopefully I'll see you soon.